Welcome back to OtakuDaiKun. Dai here, and for this video, we'll be continuing a previous concept. Last time, we looked at the unique and fascinating things that the mangas for Fate Stay Night do differently from their anime and visual novel counterparts. I've developed an immense appreciation for these manga, and highly recommend them to you guys to expand your Stay Night experience. If you haven't watched that first video, do so before starting this one. There are still many more Fate series manga adaptations for us to look at. Without further ado, let's jump right in with the manga for Fate Apocrypha. This one's written by Yuichiro Higashide and illustrated by Akira Ishida. Right off the bat, we've got the scene where mages from the Association try to attack Darnik. In the anime, we only see the aftermath, but here we actually witness the fight itself. We know that the Grail War's Red faction consists of some strange mages chosen by the Clock Tower, but we never got to see them actually have a conversation before now. They were a very understated part of the original work, and it's nice having them developed further, even if they're all about to be manipulated by Shiro Kotomine. The manga does a better job at demonstrating how Jeanne d'Arc came about as a ruler. We see her seeking out a suitable vessel and forming an agreement with Laetitia. Apparently, Astolfo used to wear armor like this as one of the paladins of Charlemagne. I've never been a fan of helmets, at least in anime where hairstyles are so much fun. Still, these servant introductions, while brief, convey more helpful information, such as this blurb on a Visebron. Before Karna fights Siegfried, he thinks back to his past as a rival of Arjuna. They could have just hinted at this, but it's much better when they actually show it. The significance of Kairi's preserved baby Hydra is better presented here, demonstrating the mythology it came from. In this shot right here, Sieg is presented as a real femboy rival to Astolfo, although that's not really fair to the man he becomes. I'm just impressed by the art. It's a step more androgynous. The original novel for Apocrypha, as well as its anime, were written in a way that excluded Jack the Ripper's summoning. While that was conveyed in a derivative work, I like how this manga incorporates it from the get-go. Keiron's backstory is also more elaborate here. A picture is worth 1,000 words, even if it's just shadowy silhouettes like this. I take back what I said about Sieg. Astolfo's still the undisputed champion femboy. When revealing Achilles' immortality, the manga shows other heroes with similar attributes. This right here happens to be our first depiction of the god Indra. If you've ever wondered what Astolfo looked like when he was turned into a tree, this manga's got your back. I love how it's less literal and more part man, part tree. It's worth noting that this manga follows the original light novel more than the anime version. Thus, we get to see when Jeanne makes a personal visit to the Yuga Millennia castle and wasn't around when Siegfried gave his life to save Sieg. She only finds out about Sieg after gaining Astolfo's trust. As Jack and her master go around killing other masters for food, the manga actually gives one of the victims a clear identity. It's not the most relevant detail, but it's a nice touch. Jack's origin as an amalgamation of aborted children is shown literally as she emerges from the river. When Keiron uses pancreation on Mordred, we actually see an example of it being used in his time. Shiro Amakusa's tragedy during the Shimabara Rebellion is especially brutal here. "You've got no arms left!" Because it's rarely depicted, I have a hard time imagining how things looked during Karna's life. These little vignettes are especially helpful. Also, while it's not exactly useful, I appreciate how this artist knows how to put those glorious abs on Mordred. So friggin' cool and sexy. Here's another glamour shot for y'all. The anime doesn't look bad or anything, but it's definitely not as polished as this, or should I say, toned. Another servant with very little development is Semiramis, which makes these panels of her backstory all the more fascinating. It's also nice seeing Atalante's backstory. She was a cute little baby being raised by a bear. I already knew that, but I want to see it, you know? There are 3 different dream sequences that provide additional backstory. One features Laetitia dreaming of Jeanne's past. Another is a Fiore dreaming of Keiron's past, where he happily taught Achilles as a student. After becoming Astolfo's master, Sieg dreams of his past, showing us a bit of Bradamante in the process. His adventures are neatly compiled into a single page, and I really wish I had this when making Astolfo's lore video. This even includes Astolfo's demise, his death at the Battle of Roncesvalles Pass. Oh, and here, have some more Astolfo fan service. You know you want it. The manga introduces another character omitted from the anime. Her name's Altuia, and she helps everyone track down Jack the Ripper. Breaking the fourth wall, Astolfo talks about the Grail Wars being held all over the world, including Las Vegas. Obviously, there were smaller Grail Wars in Apocrypha's timeline, but it's clear Astolfo's channeling the events of Fate Grand Order. There's a part where Jeanne describes her childhood. I will always take more flashbacks like this. Nearing the final battle, the manga shows a panel with all of Keiron's famous students in one place, the Argonauts mainly. When Atalante decides to turn into a monster to beat Jeanne, basically her alter form, they give us a nice look at the Caledonian boar critical to her legend. My lord, she looks fantastic. I know she's not exactly happy this way, but I do prefer it. I must have forgotten about this, or it simply doesn't happen in the anime, but the horses on Achilles' chariot actually talk to him. Though it's only for 2 pages, we can tell they have different personalities. Achilles' noble phantasm, the reality marble Diatrekon Asterlonke, was a technique he devised in order to force Hector in the Trojan War to a fair fight. This allows the manga to give Hector a bit of a cameo. The anime has Achilles duel Chiron atop airplanes, but in the manga, they do it in a coliseum. During Karna's fight with Sieg, the manga shows the scene in which Karna removes his armor for Indra. It's another important moment that rarely gets attention. On their way to Semiramis' throne, Mordred and Kairi navigate this crazy-looking Mario-esque obstacle course. I understand why it wasn't animated, but that would have been cool. It reminds Kairi of when he played video games with his adopted daughter. Seeing that projected onto his relationship with Mordred, it's just so sweet. During their fight, Semiramis summons a Bashmu, a phantasmal beast birthed by Tiamat. The manga could have just shown this thing as a giant snake, but I appreciate the added context built right into the story. Now, it was this page right here that made me want to cover these manga. This panel of Mordred is the most badass thing I've ever seen. Underboob and abs? I'm in love. I know Apocrypha doesn't end right here, but the manga's not quite done yet. As far as I'm concerned, this is a must-read. While I feel the anime is fantastic, this manga almost stands on its own. I'm sure some of y'all will find it to be the superior version. There's a pretty good manga of Fate Extra made by Robina. It focuses on Nero's route and has some amazing artwork like this. And this. It just doesn't hold back, similar to Extra Last Encore, but it actually follows the game's plot. Also, neither the anime nor game were able to literally demonstrate that Rani doesn't wear panties. The power of manga compels you. The power of manga compels you! As usual, these manga specialize in giving us servant backstories. Here's a glimpse into Robin Hood's past. By far, my favorite part about this manga is its portrayal of Nero's past life. Not only is she gorgeous in this outfit, but it's also so important to understanding her character. You can't find this anywhere else. Despite being the 5th emperor of Rome, she was manipulated by her mother and treated as no more than a figurehead. To earn her independence, Nero assassinated her mom, sparking a chain of tragic events that led to her rejection and suicide. This manga is complete, telling the full story in 6 volumes, but only 4 of them are available in English. Robina went on to start adapting Fate Extra CCC. It's not bad, but I still prefer the original story more. If more of it were accessible, I'm sure I'd have more to say. That finally brings us to Fate Grand Order's adaptations, of which there are several. Compared to the original Stay Night, FGO's storytelling is a lot more basic, relying on character portraits and CGs with a minimalistic approach. It's nowhere near as fancy as, say, Witch on the Holy Night or the Tsukihime remake. Most of the story is told through dialogue, so when an adaptation comes along, it's a welcome chance to actually show what the game tells. There's an official FGO manga called Mortalis Stella, authored by artist Shiramine. It starts out as an extremely rushed version of Fate Grand Order First Order, covering the Fuyuki singularity. I don't like how it starts Mashu out in her Stage 2 ascension, given how my favorite one is the first. Y'all know why. Were they embarrassed by it or something? I'd say skip it and just watch First Order instead, but it continues on to cover singularities that don't otherwise have adaptations, starting with Orleans. The manga's pacing is still too fast for my taste, but if you use this to supplement playing the game, it's a real treat. It's not afraid to show the darker side of this story, and I'd be interested to see its take on the British Lost Belt. Much like the various FGO anime, this manga fleshes out Ritsuka more, which I prefer to the game's presentation. Scenes with NPCs are also way better, as the game often just presented them as shadow faces without eyes, reusing assets whenever possible. I also don't recall Jean wearing this cute dress in the game. It should definitely be a Spiritron dress. The mangaka takes what melodrama the game tries to present and turns it into something much more intense and believable. Seriously, look at this! Sanson's downright evil here, beheading an innocent villager. The best the game would have done was show a generic blood splatter effect. Be honest, did you ever think Orleans could be top-tier fate? Well, here it is. Here's another flashback, this time of Amadeus's first meeting with Marie Antoinette. Then there's her standing at the guillotine, saying her last words to Sanson. How epic is that? Believe it or not, this quality continues into Septum, everyone's least favorite singularity. Well, if you hate Nero, it's gonna be a slog, but don't forget about Boudica here. We get to see Mashu in these Roman robes, much like how Babylonia's anime gave her a bit of a new look. Nero brings back this lovely ribbon thing from last Encore, so even though Mashu didn't start with my favorite ascension, it's clear there's a lot of culture to be found. This shot of Nero being haunted by memories of her oppressive mom is especially compelling. Admittedly, the manga's pace picks up even more here, making it so that the singularities aren't even summaries of what happened in-game. They're more like flashy highlight reels, which still has merit. There's a part where we see Boudica meeting Nero in the singularity, triggering memories of her past torment and humiliation by the Roman army. She realizes that our precious Umu wasn't directly responsible. In fact, she learns to love Nero, wanting to protect her like the people she loved in Britannia. Now, this manga is still ongoing, and is planned to adapt the 4th, 6th, and 8th singularities too. The reason for these gaps is that another mangaka, Kawaguchi Takeshi, is adapting the others in the manga Turus Rialta. I regret to say that the art in this one isn't nearly as good. It tells a sloppier version of the prologue, but at least it gets Mashu's outfit right. In its defense, it shows us some unique scenes with Olga in the aftermath of her father's death. Its version of Orleans is way worse than the previous manga. It's strange how this arc got adapted twice when it really doesn't need it. That said, the final battle against Gilles de Rais is pretty epic though. I may not prefer this artist's work, but they're the only one making an adaptation of Okeanos so far. It's nothing spectacular, but if you want to read the entirety of FGO in manga form, you'll need to hop over to this once in a while. Turus Rialta adopts the E pluribus unum, or American singularity next. I'll admit it does a better job showing the horrors of war than the game, which struggles to express huge masses of soldiers. The longer this manga goes on, the more it comes into its own, making it worth your time even though it doesn't compare to the other one. It's cool seeing how Maeve literally spawns hundreds of Celtic soldiers on command. Even better is this full-page spread of Rama and Sita uniting, if only for a brief moment. You wouldn't want to miss out on Skahak's manga debut either, would you? Kurid Koinhen is absolutely terrifying. Redundantly, this manga also adapts the Babylonia singularity, which to me is almost pointless given how good that anime was. It's extremely rushed, and doesn't stand on its own without already knowing the source. This next one is practically on doujinshi tier, but there's a one-shot manga made by Mugetsu that adapts the event Dance Tournament in the Land of Shadows. It's called Holy Grail Front, and I hardly remember this event beyond Skahak in a bunny suit. What I can say is that the art is just phenomenal, and since this is so short, it'll take no time to read it all. On the topic of events, Kurose Kosuke made a one-shot adapting Edmond Dantes' first event in a work titled Cries of the Avenger in the Prison Tower. It's got quite a lot of edge to its dark art. Once again, I've completely underestimated how much time it would take to talk about these manga. There are still 5 more, and rather than drive myself crazy, I'd prefer to save them for a 3rd video in this series. I hope you'll indulge me for another run of this soon. Until then, share with me your thoughts on the ones presented here in the comments below. Thanks for watching.
If you enjoy this channel, help us grow by liking, commenting, sharing the video, subscribing to OtakuDaiKun, and
most of all, smashing that notification bell so you don't miss out on all our anime lore, discussions, and Let's Play content.
you can support us directly through Patreon, Subscribestar, or a YouTube membership, all of which come with benefits like spicy exclusive vids and early access.
As always, celebrate your fandom. I want to give a special shout out to all my $10 and up supporters: Video Gamer 75, Dante Pendragon, Stephen Elak, Samuel Gersten, The Nonchalant Ostrich, Otaku Mom, Jens Bauman, Mystic Samurai 1983, Lord Ormagoden, Freebrick, Alexis Yukio Gomez Yamato, Link Pendrago, Observer Bellis, James Hewitt, Uncanny EXP, Zamas Autonomous, Scout, Yuki Eidos, Crow Kalem, Saul Soto, Tristan Riggin, Major, Caitlin P., Sogai CH, Vladimir Rovna, The Taz 96, Jonathan Padua, Kengo X77, Hersha of E-Rated Hands, Alester Bernadotte, and Akakaze Yume. Thank you all so much.